This is Liz Powell representing PCA families in one of our recordings designed to capture lived experience and best practice-based learning that assists kinship, permanent and adoptive parents and carers in supporting young people. We are a child-safe organisation. Being able to learn from peers and connect with those who may help us is particularly important. Today, we are discussing the child experience of care, what helped and what didn't. Before we do, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we meet. We pay our respects to elders past and present and express our intention to move together to a place of justice and partnership. Today, I am joined by Tory. Tory is in her 20s, is a student studying teaching and works part-time in retail. Tory is a brilliant dancer who spent the last 2 years of high school in a specialist dance school completing her VCE in between 12 hours of dance each day. No easy feat. Tory spent most of her childhood in long-term care in a family home, navigating the system. Tory also spent 2 years with Youth Foyer in Broadmeadows, an integrated learning and accommodation centre for those who are continuing to study between 18 and 24. Tory has a large family of 6 siblings and 2 parents, most of whom live in Melbourne. Her family originated from Burundi, Africa, and came to Australia in 2005. Thanks for joining us, Tory. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey to Australia from Africa and how you ended up in the system?
Sure. We came to Australia in 2005 via boat and plane. We stayed in a refugee camp where we were then put on a boat to get on a plane to come here. And when we arrived in 2005, we stayed in Springvale. And obviously, we were provided with all that we needed because we were refugees, of course. And then from there, we moved to Noble Park. How I ended up in care, my parents and my sister went to see family, and my parents got drunk and left my sister and I on a train. From there, we were taken to the police station where they put us into the system in residential care. And we were in residential care for a few years before we were put in foster care with Sonia's family. And yeah, so that was the story.
And you were about 7 when that happened, is that right, Tory?
Yes, I was
And
7.
when you sort of moved in with, a foster care family eventually, do you remember what that was like and how you settled in, how that felt for you?
At first, it was confronting, but I soon learned that the house I was in was very inviting, and Sonia really didn't push my sister and I to do anything we didn't want to, and she was always communicating with us. And like I knew I was safe, like I knew I was in a safe environment, and but also I don't think it bothered me as much as it bothered my sister, just because she was older and I was younger. So I don't think I realized what was actually happening. But I'm not that type of person who kind of gets like angry, I guess, or like overly upset about things. I'm very quiet and quite reserved, and I just let things go the way they're meant to go and flow. Whereas my sister is the exact opposite. But yeah, it was reassuring to learn that Sonia wasn't, you know, she really cared for us and wanted to know more about our culture and our home life and how she can put that into her daily family routine as well. I know she was always finding activities and culture things for us to attend to, so we didn't lose that heritage. But yeah, that was good.
And with those cultural connections and those sorts of things, I know that there was, as you've highlighted, those things were offered, but in some ways, sometimes you rejected that a little bit. Was that something that you didn't want to connect with at the time? And how do you feel about that now? You obviously appreciate that now from what you've just been saying.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for the things we did participate in, but at some point I felt like I didn't really want to do most of the things because with the African community, there can be judgmental, and especially being in a white home and then I'm trying to participate in cultural things. It's just something they would expect of me to know already. Like I know she wanted us to go take Kirundi lessons, because it got to a point where I couldn't speak my language because obviously I was speaking English every day. So, but that was quite embarrassing, and I didn't want my family or like just the African community to have that, like, say, oh, she's forgotten her language, she's not African. There's a lot of comments that get made. So I never really wanted to do it. But I think looking back, I should have just put my fears aside and just went and did the lessons, because now I struggle to communicate with like my family and my family friends and all these other people, because I didn't speak it fluently when I was growing up. So from Sonia's perspective, she was just trying to help me, but I just took it as shame and something that I should already know. It's not something that I need to take lessons for. So it was just quite embarrassing. But that was one thing we always went back and forth about. But for my sister, there was no worries at all. Like, she can speak it fluently, but also I was younger. So obviously it was much easier for me to lose that language skill.
And you highlight something there that we do hear a lot is that feeling like you don't fit in either place, because as you say, when you were in the African community, they expect you to know the language and to be able to speak it fluently. And then, of course, you're also seen as being different to the family you're living with as well. So you're sort of caught in the middle, aren't you?
Yeah.
We hear that a lot at the moment. It's great to see sometimes how people have managed to pull those connections together as they go into being an adult, into the adulthood.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now you've spoken about your sister a bit, and I know that I spoke to her previously, and there was a time when you did she did actually leave the home, and there were some arguments and a bit of a blow up. How was that for you when that happened?
From what I've been told, when she left, I wanted it to happen. Like, I was okay with the decision I made. I think just because I cared for, well, not cared, I still care for Sonia's kids. I take them as my own siblings. So when what happened that day did happen, I obviously didn't want them to be in danger. And I think she expected me to be okay with her behavior, and I wasn't. It was a shock because it all happened very fast that day. But you know, now when we talk about it, we all laugh because it was very teenage behavior.
Yeah.
It was just unnecessary, like anger and frustration. But yeah, because we had been together, we'd never been separated, and as sisters, I don't think they like to separate sisters. So I think my sister was upset at the fact that I didn't want to leave with her, but I was comfortable in where I was. I liked where I was staying. I had just gotten to the stage where I felt normal and I was part of the family, and there was not that those looks or glares like that didn't bother me anymore. So I didn't want to have to go and start over again and be in a home where other teenagers were, who I don't know what they were like, their behavior, their histories, what they were into. So that was something that always feared me when I was in the residential care, because I didn't know what the other kids were like and what their reasons were. So that was always like a factor for me. But yeah, my sister transitioned into the residential care very easily. But yeah, that day was crazy.
And it was probably strange for you after she'd left as well, being in the home without her for the
Yeah.
first time. Yeah.
Being the younger sister, I was always very quiet and reserved, and I always let her take the lead and in conversations and whatnot. But after she left, apparently I stepped out of my bubble and I was talking and talking, and Sonia said she could never get me to shut up. I think just because I was always hiding behind my sister and getting her to do the talking, everything for me. But I think that was a good thing, because I learned to stick up for myself and stand up for myself and say what I wanted to say without being shy or fear of getting rejected or turned down. So yeah, I guess that was something good that came out of it.
And we talk about a lot of trauma reactions that can happen for children, and that fight flight feeling that can happen where you get triggered very quickly, and as you say, your sister's triggered to anger. That would have been her way, and you withdrew maybe a little bit initially. Is that something that resonates for you, that you can understand from other people these days?
Yes, I can. As much of trauma, I went through stages where I was having like nightmares. for a few years. And I think they stopped when I was about 13, 14 years old. Um, just because with the whole process of coming here and living in Africa, and also, um, yeah, being quiet and reserved. Even till today, I'm still very quiet, reserved. I don't like to put myself out there.
Mm.
Um, but I think that's just a choice I've made now to be like the way that I am. But yeah.
Do you recognize any of that in your adulthood now, that you can feel when something like that happens, when you do feel that you, as you say, you like to be quiet, you withdraw a little bit, and you say to yourself, or sometimes, oh, this is triggering a little bit from what happened before. Does that happen for you at all now? I know some people do talk about that carrying on into adulthood.
Yeah, it does, especially when I'm in big groups of people. I tend to just stick to myself and talk to people that I know.
Mm.
Um, I'm not one to go and start the conversation, I guess. Um, and like just in terms of being in a new environment as well, it takes me a while to get comfortable with the place and really put myself out there.
Mm.
So like for work and school, um, a few people that I work with now, they go, "Oh, Tory, you were so quiet. You didn't talk to anyone. But now that I know you, it's like you really love to talk." I'm like, "Yes, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm until I know you and I know that I'm in a good and safe environment, I will really be quiet. Unless somebody comes and starts a conversation with me, I will stick to myself." Yeah.
Mm. And what do you, going into the system, and those times that you were in foster care, was there anything you felt didn't help, didn't help you settle in, that you'd say to others?
There was a lot of meetings and
Mm.
I'm not sure what they were called, but like worker checkups and all these things. Um, I think they were a bit too much.
Mm.
I felt like there was one every month.
Yeah.
So I think that was just annoying, I guess. And also, I guess it was hard for Sonia's family as well, and her schedule and fitting in everything. Um, but yeah, it was a bit excessive.
Yeah.
It needs to
And what
be.
about any help? Were you offered sort of psychologists or anybody to connect with in that way during that time? Were you given any counselling support?
Yes, I saw many counselors in my youth growing up. I didn't like going.
Mm.
Um, I didn't see the point, just because I don't like talking to people about my problems. But I guess it did get to a point where I was talking, but it took a while to find that person who I trusted.
Mm.
But mm, I guess, yeah, it does help. It definitely does help. But being the person who I am, I don't like talking to strangers. I
Mm.
prefer to go and talk to Sonia. Like I'm a lot more
Mm.
comfortable with Sonia now.
Mm.
Like it gets to the point where I can just go talk to her about anything. And
Mm.
I think um, that was a good relationship, the way that she started the relationship and build the relationship to the point where it is now. But back then, I didn't like to talk to anyone. I didn't like to talk to Sonia about
Mm.
anything. I didn't even my friends. I didn't really talk to them about what was going on. Um, I just like to deal with stuff on my own, and I still kind of do that today.
Mm.
Um, Unless it's like something I really can't figure out on myself, then I'll go and talk to Sonia or somebody else. But back then, I didn't really like to talk to anyone,
Mm.
and I think that's um, was we find struggled at home because Sonia's very open and she wanted me to be open as well. So I think that's why she thought seeing a counselor would help, but I just didn't see the point.
And as you say, you have to find the right one that you
Yeah.
link in with and you trust. And sometimes it's through other things like animal therapies or art therapies, where people don't talk, that they find that connection. So it is about finding that right space for you, for sure. Yeah. And what about moving into Youth Foyer? How was that? What happened with that?
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I love being independent. I love doing things when I want to do it, how I want to do it. Um, so that was great for me because obviously living at home, there's rules that you have to follow. And I struggled to follow rules. I still do struggle to follow rules. Not like major rules, but just simple as coming home on time. Like I just didn't see the point in that. If I my understanding was if I communicated, then that was it. But obviously, there are rules for a reason. So when I got to move out by myself, I had that new freedom. But it also taught me a lot about financing and planning and being organized. So yeah, I think it was a good experience for me, and
Mm,
I've learned how to live by myself and manage things when they come up.
mm, mm.
So yeah.
And what have you got anything that you'd say to someone who is in your situation now? If there's a child in care, what would you say to them that would help them going forward to be able to manage their journey?
I think just to have that relationship with your carer and build that strong foundation with them, and do talk to them, because I think it helps later on. Because then they know what you're going through and what you're thinking, what's happening. They can help you. Whereas if you shut them out, then they won't know what's going on.
Mm,
And yeah, like if there's take part in the activities and stuff that they provide, if for cultural benefits, it will help you later on in the future. And I guess also to just be grateful. I think that's another thing. You don't realize what it's like living in that home until you get out of it.
mm.
Um, and I know now they've extended the age to 21. Is that right?
Yeah, that's just come through. Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's a great idea, because I think 18 is still a bit young. Like I
Yes,
moved out at 17, so that was crazy.
yeah.
But also take everything that's given to you and learn from it. Don't take it for granted. Because I think I took a lot of things for granted. Like you don't realize how much the carer does for you until they're not there. So
Mm.
also use that opportunity to learn from them as well, because there'll be a time where you're by yourself.
Mm. And that's something that is part of being a teenager as well, isn't it? Not realizing quite what people are doing until appreciating it till you're older, for sure. Yeah. And was there anything else that you felt you wanted to share today that to people that might be watching this or listening to this?
Um, no.
Yeah. I think it's been great to talk to you, Tory. I've had some great insights into how the system works and the things that did work and didn't work for you. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And to anyone making the time to listen to this recording, thank you for giving up your valuable time for the benefit of the young people in your care. If you are a permanent care parent needing help or support, or an adoptive parent, please call PCA Families at info@pcafamilies.org.au or 9020-1833. Please subscribe, follow, or leave a review, or share an idea for a future topic. Until next time, we hope you have an amazing week.